Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriya. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, today starting chapter 12, creation of the Kumaras and others, text number 1 onwards. Maitreya Vacha iti me varnita iti te varnita kshatta kalakhya paramatmana mahima veda garbhuvat yatha sakshi nibodan me. Sri Maitreya said, O learned Vidura, so far I have explained to you the glories of the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his feature of Kal. Now you can hear from me about the creation of Brahma, the reservoir of all Vedic knowledge. Sasarjagre andhatamisram atthamisram adikrit mahamoham cha moham cha tamascha jnanavrittayaha. Brahma first created the nascent engagements like self-deception, the sense of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception of forgetfulness of one's real identity. So he first created the things of mode of ignorance. Before the factual creation of the living entities in different varieties of species, the conditions under which a living being in the material world was to live were created by Brahma. Unless a living entity forgets his real identity, it's impossible for him to live in the material conditions of life. Not just live in the material condition of life, it will be impossible for him to derive any happiness over here. We think we are happy here, but this is all illusion. But because of that little happiness that we get, we want to continue living here. Therefore, the first condition of material existence is forgetfulness of one's real identity. And by forgetting one's real identity, one is sure to be afraid of death, although a pure soul is deathless and birthless. So when we forget our real identity, then we are afraid of death. This false identification with material nature is a cause of false ownership of things which are offered by the arrangements of superior control. All material resources are offered to the living entity for his peaceful living and for the discharge of the duties of self-realization in conditioned life. But due to false identification, the conditioned soul becomes entrapped by the sense of false ownership of the property of the Supreme Lord. It is evident from this verse that Brahma himself is a creation of the Supreme Lord, and the 5 kinds of nescience which condition the living entities in material existence are creations of Brahmaji. So first thing is created is self-reception, sense of death, anger after frustration, sense of false ownership, and illusory bodily conception. It is simply ludicrous to think the living entity to be equal with the Supreme Being, when one can understand that the conditioned souls are under the influence of Brahma's magic wand. Patanjali also accepts that there are 5 kinds of nescience as mentioned herein. So these 5 kinds of ignorance, of course, it all starts from me thinking that I am this body. That's it. Then the whole ignorance starts and it takes over. It has complete control of the living entity. So that's the first thing he created, because without that, nothing is possible. It's just like when we go and see a movie in a theater. So first thing they do what? Before they play the movie, they make everything dark. So until that darkness is there, the ignorance there is there, one cannot even enjoy the movie. So similarly, the material world, first Brahmaji has to create this ignorance or darkness. Then the living entities come in. Text 3. Drishtva papi yasim srishtim natmanam bhavamanyata agbadhyan putena manasanyam tato asrijat. Seeing such a misleading creation was as a sinful task, Brahma did not feel much pleasure in his activity, and therefore he purified himself by meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he began another term of creation. See, Brahmaji, being a pure devotee, pure person, he was not happy with what he created, but this was the order of the Supreme Lord. So he purified himself by meditation. Means he means he understood what his real purpose is, that he has to do this service. Just like Arjun, being a pure devotee of the Lord, being a compassionate person, he didn't want to fight. He didn't want to kill so many people. And he was saying, just for some piece of land, you want me to kill so many people? So then Krishna gave him the instructions. So that was his purification. So he understood what Krishna wanted, he was supposed to do. Although he created the different influences of the nescience, Brahmaji was not satisfied in performing such a thankless task. But he had to do it because most of the conditioned souls wanted it to be so. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he is present in everyone's heart and is helping everyone to either remember or forget. The question may be raised why the Lord, who is all merciful, helps one to remember and another to forget. Actually, his mercy is not exhibited in partiality towards one and enmity towards another. The living entity, as part and parcel of the Lord, is partially independent because he partially possesses all the qualities of the Lord. Anyone who has some independence may sometimes misuse it due to ignorance. When the living entity prefers to misuse his independence and glide down towards nescience, the all-merciful Lord first of all tries to protect him from the trap. But when the living entity persists in gliding down to hell, the Lord helps him to forget his real position. The Lord helps the falling living entity glide down to the lowest point just to give him the chance to see if he is happy by misusing his independence. So this is the function of super soul. Anuvanta and Drishta, Sakshi, means he is a witness and he is sanctioner. So he doesn't remove or he doesn't take away the minute independence that the living entity got. So we have our desires, good or bad desires. Super soul sees it, he doesn't approve right away. But if we persist, like Prabhupada is saying, if we persist, then Super Soul approves it, sanctions it. Okay, you do it. And you go down to hell. But out of his mercy, Super Soul still remains with that living entity, no matter where he goes in the material world. Whether he goes to hell, whether he takes animal body, whether he takes a plant body, Super Soul remains with him to not as a witness, as a sanctioner only, but as a guide also. He gives the guidance from within. But if the living entity is so stubborn or so much in ignorance that he doesn't hear that proper guidance, then Super Soul still stays with him and lets him do whatever he wants. And this is a proper thing. The Lord helps the falling living entity glide down to the lowest point just to give him the chance to see if he is happy by misusing his independence. So, so Super Soul, see, Brahmaji himself is not happy by creating whatever little bit he has done so far. So how can Super Soul be happy by seeing somebody, some living entity, glide down to hell, to the lowest point of the creation? But he's still there to see, uh, to give a chance to the living and to see if this is the happiness or this is the position I want, or should I look for something better? Almost all the conditioned souls who are rotting in the material world are misusing their independence, and therefore 5 kinds of nescience are imposed upon them. As an obedient servitor of the Lord Brahma creates all these as a matter of necessity, but he is not happy in doing so, because a devotee of the Lord naturally does not like to see anyone falling down from his real position. Persons who do not care for the path of realization get full facilities from the Lord for executing their proclivities to the fullest extent, and Brahma helps in that procedure without fail. See, Prabhupada writes such a beautiful line. Brahma creates all this as a matter of necessity, but he is not happy in doing so, because a devotee of the Lord naturally does not like to see anyone falling down from his real position. Anyone. What to speak of a devotee here Brahma says clearly, Prabhupada clearly says anyone. Anyone means any living entity. What to speak of devotee when he sees the other devotee in some sort of trouble or some sort of hardships, some sort of difficulties in his spiritual life? Naturally, our compassion should arise. But instead of compassion, many times we rejoice, thinking, this devotee, he's supposed to suffer more. He's such a rascal. He's such a this, such that. How can we be the judge of anybody? Rather, there should be compassion. Rather, there should be a sincere mood to help a devotee. We should be real well-wisher. Even if we cannot do anything, maybe the devotee is going through so much of hardship and he has no faith in us or anybody. At least we can do. The least thing we can do is pray for him and not talk negative about him. That's the least thing. Even if we cannot do anything positive, anything proactive. That's the nature. That's a qualification. It should be the characteristic of a devotee. But rather, because we have so much of envy in our hearts, we rejoice. We broadcast the other person's hardships very nicely. And with so much of enthusiasm we broadcast. And how do we think Supreme Lord can be happy with us? Krishna is happy with Brahmaji because he gave him this power, this position to do this creation. And Brahmaji, look at the verse itself. Verse says, seeing such a misleading creation as a sinful task, Brahmaji did not find much pleasure, did not feel much pleasure in his activity, and therefore he purified himself by meditation. We are trying to chant every day. We are trying to meditate on the Supreme Lord through his holy names. Well, where is the purification if we are not developing this quality of compassion towards, forget about towards any Tom, Dick, and Harry, towards even devotees? Then what is the point? What are we doing? Text 4. Sanakam cha sanandan cha sanatanam yathatma bhu sanatkumaram cha munina nishkriya anur dvareta saha. In the beginning, Brahma created 4 great sages, namely named Sanak, Sanand, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumar. All of them were unwilling to adopt materialistic activities because they were highly elevated due to their semens flowing upwards. Although Brahma created the principles of nescience as a matter of necessity for those living entities who were destined to ignorance by the will of the Lord, of course, it was still not, of course, his creation was by the will of the Lord, not the destiny or the living entities' desire. That was not the will of the Lord. He was not satisfied in performing such a thankless task. He therefore created 4 principles of knowledge, Sankhya or empirical philosophy, for the analytical study of material conditions. Yoga, second principle of knowledge is yoga, or mysticism for liberation of the pure soul from material bondage. Third is vairagya, the acceptance of complete detachment from material enjoyment in life to elevate oneself to the highest spiritual understanding. And tapas, or the various kinds of voluntary austerities performed for spiritual perfection. So Brahmaji created Sankhya, like the philosophy, Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, and Tapa. So because of that, Brahmaji created the 4 great sages. So the 4 Kumaras, they're the first living beings after Brahmaji in this universe. Brahma created the 4 great sages, Sanak, Sanand, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumar, to entrust them with these 4 principles of spiritual advancement. And they inaugurated their own spiritual party or sampradaya known as Kumar Sampradaya, or later on as the Nimbarka Sampradaya for the advancement of bhakti. All of these great sages became great devotees, for without devotional service to the personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve success in any activity of spiritual value. So these 4 Kumaras, that's why they're called Kumar, because they remain little babies forever. We'll read further. So they understood the value of spiritual advancement, and they didn't want to get entangled in material life. So they, of course, they refused to follow the orders of Brahmaji to get married. So they remained Kumaras, and they started their own sampradaya, Vaishnava sampradaya, which is called Kumar Sampradaya. And since in the modern ages, Nimbarka Acharya was the main Acharya in that sampradaya, so that sampradaya is also called as Nimbarka Sampradaya. So there are 4 sampradayas, 4 bona fide Vaishnava sampradaya. Sri Sampradaya, in which Ramanujacharya is the main Acharya now, although Sri Sampradaya was there from beginning. And Kumar Sampradaya, when main Acharya is Nimbarka Acharya. And then the Rudra Sampradaya. Lord Shiva also started his own Vaishnava Sampradaya, and in which the main Acharya is Vishnu Swami. But now Vallabhacharya comes in that Sampradaya. And then the 4th comes from Brahmaji himself, so Brahm Madhav Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya is the main acharya these days. I mean, in Kali Yuga. So Madhva Gaudiya. And then it became Gaudiya because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took Diksha in that sampradaya. So in that sampradaya, we all belong. So now talking about Kumar Sampradaya, later known as Nimbarka Sampradaya. There, now every sampradaya has a Mahamantra. So Nimbarka Sampradaya, Mahamantra is Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Shyam, Shyam Shyam, Radhe Radhe. And these days, because we've been to Barsana, so Ramesh Baba of Barsana, he's one of the leading acharyas of the sampradaya, and he's propagating the teachings and Mahamantra of this sampradaya. Text 5. Tan babhashe swabhu putran praja srijat putrikaha tannachan moksha dharmano vasudeva parayana. Brahma spoke to his sons after generating them. My dear sons, he said, now generate progeny. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation and therefore they expressed their unwillingness. So it's not that in Kali Yuga only people don't listen to their parents. This is going on from the beginning of creation. First created beings, 4 Kumaras, they told their father, no, we're not going to do what you're telling us to do. So if your sons also don't listen to you, so they are in the right disciplic succession. So don't worry. The 4 sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, declined to become family men, even on the request of their great father, Brahma. Those who are serious about gaining release from material bondage should not be entangled in the false relationship of family bondage. This is what Prabhupada is writing. So those who are serious about gaining release from material bondage should not be entangled in the false relationship of family bondage. So the Grihastha life is, actually it's not for everybody. Those who don't want to come into this life, that's fine. But Grihastha life is, yes, it's a slow train, passenger train to Vaikuntha, to Golok Vrindavan. But it's a safe train. Other trains are fast, but there could be accidents on the fast trains. People may ask how the Kumaras could refuse the orders of Brahma, who was the father and above all the creator of the universe. The reply is that one who is Vasudeva Parayana or seriously engaged in the devotion service of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, need not care for any other obligations. Even Krishna says, Sarvadharman Pariteja. So abandon all kinds of duties of religion and just surrender unto me, and I'll relieve you of all the sinful activities. Do not fear. Anyone who has completely given up all worldly relationships and has taken absolute shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, who gives us salvation and alone is fit to be taken shelter of, is no longer a debtor or servant of anyone, including the demigods, forefathers, sages, other living entities, relatives, and members of human society. Thus, there was nothing wrong in the acts of the Kumaras when they refused their great father's request that they become family men. Of course, their logic for denying this request or denying this order was because they were Vasudeva Parayana. They wanted to pursue spiritual life. It wasn't like it because family life is a burden or family life could be entangling, or they just wanted to live free. That's why they were not getting into family life. But because they wanted to advance spiritually, so they refused this order of Brahmaji. So we'll continue tomorrow. We'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Prabhuji, you scared us telling when our sons don't listen, we consider them to be in the right succession.
Well, this is coming from the beginning.
Kali Yuga, in Kali Yuga, they don't obey us for all the wrong reasons. At least we feel that.
That is a different story. but the tendency is there from the beginning.
Yes, Prabhuji. Well, thank you, Prabhuji. It was wonderful, in fact, to understand even that the material condition was created first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in one of the previous examples, I think you had said, the jail is created first and then the prisoners brought in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Any other question or comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question from the previous lecture yesterday. That is, you mentioned about Nimesha. That is, I think the 100 kalpas of Brahma is one Nimesha, the blink of an eye of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, can you elaborate? Is that mean that we have a calculation here that at some point of time, because it's a blink of an eye, so at some point of time, there is also a lifespan for Supreme Personality of Godhead? I was just
Not the life. In spiritual world, it's eternal. No? There's no lifespan there.
but like you mentioned about Brahmaji, that he never wants to, die. Even like that, some calculation was the 100 kalpas, one nimish. That is, one nimish is actually the blink of an eye of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, so the blink of an eye, if you think it takes around 1 second, and that 1 second is the entire, the age of Brahma. So that way, I was just thinking yesterday about this calculation. Where there be any calculation for the the lifespan of Supreme Personality of Godhead?
No, because
he is infinite.
so infinite. So there's no lifespan there. It's just blink of eye is there. They also blink eyes. There's no correlation there. No.
Okay, so it's meant for that in one blink. It's the entire one lifespan for Brahmaji. It's not actually meant for the lifespan of spiritual, Supreme Personality of Godhead.
No,
is it?
There cannot be lifespan over there because it's eternal. Eternal means
It's
no
eternal.
beginning, no end. And blink of eye is just given. Blink of eye is just given for us to understand what exactly is material time.
All right, just for
Just for our understanding, and to also just give us some consolation that maybe we are in the material for world for maybe one universe creation or dissolution, full dissolution, or two universes, three universes. So maybe we are away from Krishna according to his calculation, 3 or 4 blinks of his eyes. So
thank you, Prabhuji.
So looking in that perspective, so we won't be away from Krishna for too long.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And yesterday, some of Prabhuji has posted one video about two foreigners who settled in India, and they were serving. One of them are from Germany, other one from America. And the German one, the lady is serving, I think,
Cows.
the entire Gaushala, and really influenced by that, because there's certain things which both of them talked about, is that we are so fortunate that we are born in this country, a country of Vedic culture and all. So I think we have to awaken ourselves, and we have to put ourselves more and more into the spirituality. And she talked about this Ramayana, and every houses there is Ramayana, Sundargarn, and so many Srimad Bhagavatam. Uh, Katha is there. It happens, and she was telling that we are not fortunate enough in Western countries to have this, but somehow they were associated in the previous lifetime. That's why they are here in India and serving. Somehow they are doing this service for Lord.
I know.
So quite an
I
impressive
know.
video.
And she was recently given Padma Shri by Government of India.
Absolutely, Babu. But I think she don't have that government aid yet from the UP government for running that Gosala.
Probably not, because what I heard was she was getting rental from her properties in Germany and rental income, and she's using that income in serving the cows here.
Yeah.
So yes, anyway we can help her. Why not? It'll be a great service to the cows, to that wonderful devotee. Why not?
40 years,
Maybe,
Prabhuji, of her life she has spent here.
yeah, maybe you can find out more information about her Goshala, and let's see how
Yeah.
we can help.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Okay, so I guess we can stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.